Right, here we go. All right, what's up, everybody? I'm Jesse. This is Mike. We are Arizona fans. Wildcat Fanalytics is what we're doing, our show about obsessive fans who want to soothe their sanity through numbers and subjectivity. So welcome back to our little experiment. Since last we met, Mike, we have had games versus Belmont, UT Arlington, and then the showdown in Palm Desert with Michigan State. Yeah, a lot of ground has been covered. What are you feeling about this team today, given all that?
Yeah, it's surprising that it's been 3 games, like it's hard to almost remember each of those individual games, but the will of this team to win is really what strikes me out of all of it. They uh they just keep coming at you, which is great. It's been wonderful to see. So I don't know that I have any deep insights on separate if the individual games beyond just how impressed I was, honestly, defensively across all three. Yeah, that's my favorite thing, and I've got some stuff to talk about later about that. But you saw the Belmont game on TV. You saw UT
Hmm,
Arlington on TV.
I did not.
No,
That's why I wanted to ask you before we brush over it. I
yeah,
missed the UT Arlington game and I couldn't find a replay on Pac-12. Looked at the highlights, obviously, but I was so
yeah.
fascinated by the second half and wondered if you thought the defense, like how much of our defense made the impact on that disparity versus just missing open shots.
Yeah, and a lot of it was what you talked about previously, which is like guys show up to McHale and they are running at 120% when they first get there, and you just can't keep it up. So I think a lot of it was that, and then a big part of it was just we imposed our will in that second half. We were the stronger, tougher team, which has been a theme for this team throughout this season, which is awesome to experience. It's really nice
The new
to have
experience
that.
as a Wildcat fan.
Yeah, right. I'm not trying to disparage
Yeah,
prior teams or anything, but man,
totally.
feels good to be the team with the higher will to win is just how it shakes.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And I got to experience that in person against
Love
Michigan
that for you.
State.
Yeah,
Love that for me because I'm not a U of A grad. I haven't seen that many games in person.
yeah.
And I wanted to comment. So I've been thinking about this since watching the game because what struck me about that setting was the way Michigan State fans and culture showed up. And
Ooh,
so when you talk about Arizona's will to win, it does very much feel like an emergent quality. And Tommy keeps mentioning establishing standards, right? And he's
yeah.
talking about like guys going in and being able to know their assignments and bring effort and bring the values of the team onto the court consistently. What I noticed and was really impressed by with Michigan State that will bring full circle to Arizona, it was like the vibe in the arena was intimidating. It was like these guys don't accept, like they don't expect to be in a one down position, and everyone from Izzo to we were sitting amongst mostly Michigan State fans, just the way that our section shook out.
Yeah.
Super nice folks, and but those buggers are intense, and even though they were pretty realistic about their team, they were just like, we're struggling. And so like I watched the first half and I'm like, is this really all they have? Is this like this ball screen,
Yeah.
make a contested 19-footer offense? And that's pretty much what they relied on. And I thought we covered it pretty well. They missed a couple open ones, they made a couple tough ones. And you know, and I was like, wow, maybe Izzo is kind of, archaic in this way. Maybe he's lost touch with the game. Maybe he's done. Then they came out in the second half, and I thought the in-person adjustments that they made were stark, um,
Yeah.
especially defensively. I think some of what people make about the coaching moves was just shot making in the second half. Like
Mhm.
they made a ton of tough shots, and
Yeah.
they missed some open ones, and the 3-point percentage was pretty low. So I'm sure they could point to that and say, we expect better, and that's fine.
Right.
I thought we actually defended their pick and roll pretty well, and
Mhm.
in certain ways, Umar got kind of a bad rap, because if you go back and watch the highlights, I thought he covered pretty well, and those guards are good shot makers, and give him credit.
Well, yeah, what was that? Which guard of theirs was it that hit that ridiculous,
The bank.
fadeaway, yeah, bank over top of his outstretched arms? And if you look at what Umar did to close out on him, I
It was
mean,
good.
that
It
was
was a good closeout.
that was
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Incredibly athletic for a guy who's, massive. So a lot of people have said, Umar, yeah, maybe not as fit as he ought to be, or lacks the mobility that we're expecting. I trust other people's opinion on that are experts. There's some guys on the board that work in physiology that it's like, hey, cool, I believe you. To me, I still see some incredible stuff out of him.
We'll come back to him today, because he's going to be a feature.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say I was really humbled, and that game, similar to Duke, it had a similar arc. But when Michigan State was making their run, it was a real unfolding of will versus skill, and
Yeah.
it showed me what a really established level of standards can do to the cultural will, because that team is not as good as we are. It wasn't like Duke, where the skill
Yeah.
is pretty even, and
Yeah.
we outwilled them.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Duke game, even though it almost went the same, like we were down with a minute left by 1. Michigan
Yep.
State came back; they were up 3
Felt
with
very similar.
very similar arc. Versus Duke, I felt like, even if we lose, we sort of outplayed these guys, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
they're really good, and they're at home, and they made a couple
Right.
shots.
It is what it is.
Michigan State, I felt like, oh, like this is big time will.
They
And
could out tough us, is
they
what
could
it
out
felt
tough
like.
us. And they were
Yeah.
not they were not the skill match to our team. And that's what I kind of rested in, was like, this was not a 50-50 game like Duke, but it was within reach for Michigan State with 5 minutes to go. And for them to have won, they would have had to go a level above even the
Right.
shot making that they had. And so I felt fine with it. It
Yeah.
was like, it was within reach for them. And they probably, 1 out of 5 games, they would have made enough of those really tough contested shots that they would have won. And that's the way it goes. But what I took from it was, we got punched pretty hard. We do have guys that can fight. But it's not yet rooted in the DNA. And what
Sure.
I mean by that is, I felt the Michigan State presence in that building, where it was like there was no negotiation.
You could hear it.
You could hear it.
You
Was
could hear it on the TV.
so loud, dude. It
They
was
were not.
crazy.
They weren't intimidated. They weren't.
Nope.
There was not a single bit of give up.
Nope.
And that bench went nuts when they would make an effort play, or make a, to get a little bit closer. It's like, you didn't take the lead. You just got a little bit closer, and you guys are freaking out. It was intimidating just being there,
Totally.
watching
Totally.
it from my side.
And we were
Nuts for
sort
you.
of, we were sort of like to the out of bounds baseline side of their bench,
Yeah.
and with all their crowd. And it was just like, they were not happy to be there. They were like, no, we come and assert our will. You don't do that
Yeah.
to us. And I thought, like, in the first half, we did a really great job of overwhelming them a little bit. We're going to show a couple clips with that, but
Yeah.
ultimately I came away feeling a little shaken. I felt like, wow, they,
We've got a little ways to go.
we got a little ways to go. And I think
Yeah.
what you saw, the sort of the low hanging fruit from this was, everybody's talking about Caleb and Keshad, and to me, Bradley, 100% shot of the game, play of the game, lot of like really underrated ball screen defense in the second half.
His ball screen defense was nuts.
And all that
second
stuff
half,
he was really good. Caleb was 0 for 4 in the last couple of minutes, but I think what we like to see was he attacked. And what I saw from my vantage point, because in that part of the game, we were shooting at the opposite end of the court. And I saw this kind of collective freeze response from the team. Like that they sort of stopped, like the initial actions got cut off and they stopped. And then it was like, well, who's got the fight? And so
Yeah.
Caleb has that, and that's what, it's well documented, and we love that about him. And then Keyshawn basically pulled us out of the fire.
I was going to say, I mean, it was really Keyshawn saving our tails,
Yeah,
because like, a bit of like I call it the Kobe assist, right? You've heard that before, where it's like, all right, thank you, Caleb, for getting in there and getting a shot up. It was some of those were terrible shots. You almost hit the bottom of the rim with one of those, falling away, kind of like as a layup, but. Yeah, there's Keyshawn. And so, those guys together joining this team, I think culturally have been a massive lift because of, like you said, that just will to succeed.
so the will's definitely there with those three guys, and
Mhm.
I think Boswell got a little bit of a freeze, and I think we'll talk more about Ballo. So those three guys, the three transfers, interestingly enough, I thought really showed up. The other thing I came away with that you and I share a similar perspective on probably is Pelle Larsson's legit, man. That
I love him so much.
I still think he's underappreciated by the
Yeah,
fan base, and I'm
yeah,
not like pedestalizing him as an All-American or something like that. I
no,
I just think it's hard to appreciate a fourth year player who does the number of things well that he does,
yeah,
and that was a huge reason why Michigan State came back. That middle of the second half when Keyshawn and Pella had 4 fouls, we were playing with KJ, Bradley, Love, Boswell, and Ballo. And
yeah,
those guys, they stayed engaged. But like Pella is crucial, and everybody's crucial.
yeah,
I don't want to get into the reductionism of like, what if
right.
you only had
It's
one guy? But Pella is so underrated. He missed that
mhm,
one fast break layup in the first half, but otherwise he's aggressive to the hole. He's getting the free throw line. He settles things defensively. He was guarding Walker in the first
yeah,
half, and of course those guys were switching. And I think that was one of the other things that stuck. The last thing I'll say, so we can get moving here. Those guys had a 3 guard lineup of shot makers with Hogard, Akins, and Walker, and we have a team now where we can feel comfortable switching with any of our 5 perimeter guys. I mean, when have we
yeah.
had 5 perimeter guys that you feel like, oh, we don't have to hide anybody? And so
Eh,
what I saw is last thing I'll say. What I saw
yeah,
was
yeah,
in the first half, especially, but also in the second half, even though they made some shots and that really our defensive engagement on the perimeter stayed consistent and was, left an imprint. And so all 3 of those guys switching, whether it was the Boswell, Love, Larson, or either Lewis or Bradley off the bench with one of the other guys, was really, really strong. And Larson he's almost like the Michael Dickerson kind of piece of that,
mhm.
where like you can put him on a point guard and his length can bother. And I think that worked pretty well. And I think overall that's going to work well for us moving forward.
Yeah, it's a critical question of like, do we have guys that can defend a smaller shot making team? And I don't, Michigan State wasn't doing a stellar job with their shot making all game, but that does lead to that question of like, previously we've seen Arizona teams go down to that kind of a team, and to have this set of guys that we have, and even if you think about the bench, like those guys might be the best perimeter defenders on the team. Like,
Yep.
or at least they've got
They don't
flashes
drop
where you're
off.
like,
You don't drop
no,
off. Yeah.
you're like, oh my gosh, like these guys are menaces. Like I'd hate to be playing against them. And so, man, yeah, I go to sleep really happy at night thinking about the 5 perimeter defenders that we have.
Yeah, I mean, in all my time, my fandom started basically in 1989, 90, and
Mhm.
in all my time, I can't remember feeling better about 5 guys that play 1 through 3. I mean, that 97, 98 team had Dickerson, Terry, Simon, and Bibby were all pretty solid, especially Terry and Dickerson were tough
Yeah,
defensively. These guys might be on par or a little better, and at the very least, you've got 5 of them, and so
yeah,
that's I think that's where I feel like in the past few years we've been more at the mercy of like, are other teams going to hit open shots
sure,
or not? And now
sure.
it feels like, Michigan State, even though they came back a little, we were still pushing that ball screen offense into the long
Mhm.
2-point zone, and they just made a few,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
good for them. But we really did better at keeping them out of the lane. Whereas it felt like last year and the year before, it was like if ball screen offense, if you beat the point guard, you're going to get, either a 6-foot floater or a layup.
Yeah, and then allowed, a pretty thin post rotation last year to have to take the brunt of that. And then, if those guys go into foul trouble, you're seriously in trouble. So, it's deeply encouraged.
We're going to talk. I can't wait to talk maybe after Colgate about, like Henry Vasar, because I actually saw in that game, I'm like, this is where a guy like that could help us, because he's he's a mobile guy. And anyway, we'll come back to that. So let's get the segueing into where we were last time. We were talking a lot about field goal percentage at the rim and some of those numbers, comparative data. So you've drawn up a little bit of a screen share, because we've had 3 games since that data, which is actually, we've doubled our schedule since that time. So tell us how the guys that we looked at last time, which were largely Krivas, Bradley, and was it Krivas, Bradley, and Love that you're looking at mainly?
It was Krivas, Bradley, and Love. Yes. Let's see. Do we have my screen share up?
It looks
floating.
Beautiful, buddy.
Oh, it does. Good. We are we got a lot of tech here. So percentage.
You might have frozen. There you are.
Yeah, it keeps telling me I'm crashing because apparently my computer isn't good enough for Zoom and a snipping tool at the same time.
Try just when you do that, just stopping your video and see if that opens the bandwidth for it to.
Okay, how do I stop the video?
It should be on the bottom left. Yeah.
Boom. Hey. That way people don't see me just attempting to poke the screen.
So it's up there. I can see right up at the top. Love's had a real nice few games at the rim. I think Mike's having tech trouble. So
are you there? Can you hear me?
There you are. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, he's at 63% now, which we love. That's fantastic. If he ends the season at 63% on his rim percentage, I mean, it's just far and away better than what he did previously, and you feel fantastic about that.
Especially if he's gotten, over a quarter of his shots at the rim, like because I wish I could look up the comparative data, but I'm guessing 27.5% at the rim and 63 of those makes is probably a little better than last year at Carolina on both accounts.
Yeah, we'll maybe post that in the chat later.
Because the 3-point shooting has not been good. He's at 27%, and I'm curious to see where that goes. Yeah.
Yeah, and
it's 53% of his shots,
and a lot of those have been assisted. And so we were saying earlier in the year, like, gosh, if we can get 75% assisted, 80% assisted, so that he's not doing these, dribble step back threes, I'm sure that his percentage is gonna show up. And you saw in that Michigan State game, particularly, he's feeder set, the ball gets to him, and he just embarrassingly clanks some of those shots.
Totally.
So I can't imagine that that's going to continue, but I'm not going to tempt fate. Let's just see where it goes. Everybody else that was doing well, it continues to do well. Krivas, he was in the 40s before.
He's in the low 40s.
Yeah, he's at 54 now, which is great, trending in the right direction. Jaden Bradley trending in the right direction. So happy to see that. I think that those guys will continue to rise. And that means.
Can I say something about
please?
Bradley? Yeah. I think it's significant that, unlike Boswell and Love, and this is what I was mentioning last time about Bradley being able to get to spots on the floor, he's currently shooting 47% of his shots at the rim.
Yeah. He loves to get there. I like him getting into the mid-range, taking just a mid-range jumper, and maybe not one as difficult as the one that he hit against Michigan State. That was a really
desperado.
Yeah, it was a prayer, but I'll take it. Prayer answered. But yeah, I mean, the guy loves to get to the rim. He's got a great body for it. Just really encouraged to see his rim finishing
Totally.
continue to kind of trend up there.
You're back. Could you
I'm
see all
back,
that?
baby.
You could see all that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So overall, what are your impressions of just what those numbers say about how the team's performing?
Yeah. That's the that's what you're hoping to see as the team gets their feet under them and gets more comfortable and continues to gel, makes smart decisions. Again, I thought that Love made some tough decisions where he drove into traffic, but sometimes that's just forced on you. And unfortunately, like you said, at the end of that Michigan State game, it was forced on him. Thankfully, the team, off his effort, was able to, get an offensive rebound or, get the buckets. So,
Right.
yeah, trending in the right direction. That says to me that these guys that are relatively new together, there's not a ton of continuity to this team, are starting to play well off each other, make smart decisions.
Nice. Yeah. And you hear it all the time, people talking about needing a player who can get a basket when things
Yeah.
break down late in the game. And I understand all that. I'm also more interested in the impact of conviction on like sticking to your guns in tough
Mm-hmm.
moments as a system. So yes, I understand there will be breakdown moments, and that's where a guy like Caleb Love is invaluable, and Miles Simon, um,
I
and
agree though that you want to
yeah,
see the
here
other thing though.
what I came away with against Michigan State is like the learning could go a couple different ways from this, and we're going to see this when we play this, gauntlet of 4 really tough games coming up. Does this become more of your DNA as a team, and more guys step up and want to be engaged in those moments, and
Yeah.
can you fall back on the system? Because even though I think Michigan State's system is super ugly and not something that I have a ton of respect for, as I'm
Right.
like, if we lost this game, like this is garbage. This kind of
Yeah, I
dribbling
wouldn't feel
around,
good.
shooting
Yeah.
20-foot, I don't love like that kind of basketball is not
No, of
like
course not.
interesting to me. So
Yeah.
what I'm looking at is like when stuff happens, does the team fragment from the system, or do they come back to the system? And Michigan State, for what it's worth, they seem to go deeper into their conviction when things got tough.
Mm-hmm.
We seem to freeze a little bit. And we came away, and Jaden Bradley hits that shot. I doubt he hits that shot more than 1 out of 6, 7 times. So
Yeah.
like, just to be objective, I think where we and Izzo said it after the game. He's like, I thought we outplayed them a little bit more than they outplayed us, and I think there's some truth to that. I don't think they were
Yeah.
better, but I think what he's picking up on is they were more convicted with their system than perhaps we were, and that's why you go through these games, so that like Tommy
Yeah.
knows developmentally this program is still very young in terms of
Totally.
establishing. We almost feel like a young teenager. Michigan State felt like a wise, like Brett Favre coming out of retirement, gunslinging.
You're like, not always pretty, but he's gonna
Not.
he knows what he's doing out there.
There was no hesitation. Like they were on the attack, whether that attack was, something honorable or not, it didn't matter. Their conviction really, really got stronger the more in the hole they got. Whereas we sort of froze a little. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that for that game was losing, the guy that we were just talking about,
Yep.
that I think is the most seasoned in this offense, the most intelligent within the offense, and Pella Larson.
Yeah.
He's just he just makes, he's the straw that stirs the drink kind of thing, where you know that he's going to settle the team and get into the right actions. He can attack off the ball, or off the dribble, and yeah. So not having him out there, and relying on guys that have maybe played as a 17-year-old in Kylan in this system, or really haven't played in this system, a little more difficult. So hopefully, we don't have to talk about refs, heading forward, and Pella's able to stay in the game. Little on Pella as well. Needs to stop
Totally.
trying to pull the crease and slide under guys, whether or not you thought that was a block. It's just not a smart play with 4 fouls.
Right. I really wanted to talk about officiating the day after the game, and now I'm just
Oh
like,
God,
I don't
yeah.
want to
I'm
bring it up, but because
so tired of it.
I think the interesting thing was that everybody in the stadium, the Michigan State fans, were, of course, any fan looks at the lens of like the game as if like everything's going exactly as planned for the opponent, but this is
Right.
not the way it's supposed to go for us. And so I try to be really objective with that. And I felt like one thing I'll bring it up right now. This to me, I'm going to bring up an epitome. I did feel like just watching the game that some of the questionable calls that went the way of Michigan State were very, very impactful in terms of momentum or otherwise. And I mean, Pelle Larson, he had a couple, of course, because he's aggressive, but I thought that last one, he had a couple where it was like he got called for a foul just for being on the court. It was just like, what are we doing here? So
yeah, I thought his last 3 were all just like, that's not, you don't have to call that, man.
You don't have to call that. So it was bizarre on both ends, and
I thought it was bizarre on both ends. I want to completely agree with that. And a Michigan State fan, if you ever come across this, we had our eyes open. I thought there was completely bizarre calls on both sides. I think Shear even noted that during the game. He's like, this is kind of garbage on both ways. But I do agree that there were critical calls against Arizona that, really changed the kind of the flow of our ability to manage the game.
So my seats are like right. If you take Boswell's back and you go back up on the other side of the player entrance there, we're about like 15 rows up. So I had this perfect line of sight right over the official underneath the hoop's shoulder. This was the play that really stung for me because this was epitomized how
is KJ going to pick up a foul here?
No, it's this to me epitomized like how Michigan State benefited from the inconsistency of physicality. And but also we're not going to use it to blame the officials. We're going to talk about how Arizona can learn from this. So I want you to just keep your eyes on Boswell the whole time. And most of Michigan State's threes came on second chances. So here you're in the initial ball screen. Just watch Boswell here.
Yeah.
This shot's going to go up. All right. So to me, that was definitely a foul, and the way they were calling the game, and at the same time, Boswell wasn't ready for it, right? And so here it comes, and of course they get the 3, and that was huge. And Boswell knew it. You can see his reaction.
Yeah, I saw. I remember that reaction where he's just like,
right. He's like, darn it. So he's not like, the opportunity here is, yes, that was a foul, especially with what the crap they were calling. But he needs to hold
get back in the game.
Yeah. And so look, like we leave Akins, I think that is, and then there, and so that's where it was like they were on the attack, and we were sort of like shell shocked. And I think, foul or not, the learning from that, if I'm Tommy, is like, hey, like you got to get in the fight, and I think that the one thing I will say about the officiating is it was so inconsistent that I don't think players could understand what to predict and how to play. And I think that's where officiating really does a disservice to the game.
100%. You call it one way or call it the other way, but call it.
It's like an umpire calling a pitch on the corner and then not, and then so I think
like, where's the box?
Yeah, where's the box? It was really, really inconsistent and very bizarre. But that's all we'll say.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna can it because
because we could make a whole thing out of it. I am actually excited. Let's shift gears, and we're gonna do some clip sharing, and then we're gonna have a nice little riff on Ballo here because everybody's up in arms. So we have not given any love so far to video clip love so far to KJ Lewis, and I want to demonstrate a couple things I noticed this last week that exemplify athleticism that's not as obvious, so we know we can see when he's jumping out of the gym and making a block shot, right? But I'm going to show you 4 examples of high level athleticism that leads to winning plays that we haven't really had. And I'm not saying he's like the only guy in the world that can do this stuff, but it's just exciting to see in a freshman, and really rare. This first one's against UT Arlington. I want you to watch the ball awareness and
Mhm.
like the core awareness. My background in kinesiology and physiology and then working with distance runners is so important. Like the better athletes end up being more economical in
Mm.
10K racing. Now, obviously, we're talking about basketball, which is so much more dynamic. So watch this play, how he controls the ball, actually pivots, recovers, and has the presence of mind to feed the post. It's a little thing, but I think 4 out of 5 players, this would be a turnover and a layup the other way. And instead, he's gonna watch this. Look at that.
Ah,
Yeah. And
brilliant.
and he gets, he gets the bucket there. But like he's able to, we'll rewind that. He's able to like pivot right here. It's sort of a
Mhm.
broken play. I think they screw it up. This guy,
Him and JB
yeah,
constantly screw up plays
yeah,
together.
they're
I think
they're
they
they're
need to get
still
on the
in.
same page.
This guy, the excuse me, the UT Arlington big shoots the gap. He anticipates this,
Yeah.
and this 4 out of 5 times, this is a steal the other way. Watch this. Whoa,
Ooh,
he's quick enough and strong
yeah.
enough in his core to pivot, and then he's got his head up and delivers it. So to me, that's like a small thing, but a really, really important thing.
I think you could show 100 clips throughout just these 6 games of him doing plays where you're like, a normal human body isn't able to do that, and then even a normal 18-year-old freshman isn't processing the court like that.
Exactly.
Combining those two things together, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this kid's special.
Exactly. You
Yeah,
said it. That says it really well. So we're not going to show you 100, but I do have 4. This one I think is a double.
I think we could.
Um, okay, so this one's really cool because this is a missed free throw, and I want you to watch him on the line. He's going to keep the ball alive, and then it doesn't even look like he has the clean line to the ball. He's going to not only secure the ball, but he's going to run the break. And instead of rushing down with a head of steam and throwing up a wild shot or getting an offensive foul, he's going to gather himself and make a play. So again, this is a ball that 4 out of 5 players, I bet the ball gets resecured by Arlington and they have another set. But instead, he's gonna turn it into a positive play for Arizona. So here he is. Tip, tip.
Still after it. Ugh.
Watch this though. Slow down, deliver. Yeah. Just really, really simple, high level stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out Mike Luke for leading the 5-star KJ
Oh,
parade. He's
totally.
looking right.
Actually,
For,
I wait, there's one. I think this was the one with I think this was the one where he had like back-to-back highlights. So keep talking. So here's watch this. So
no,
now
yeah,
he's gonna come back on defense. I hope I have this right here. Yeah, look at that save. And then the core strength to gather, slow down, let the defense come,
Oof.
and then deliver. Yeah, I mean it's little, but like a lot of guys wouldn't have the physical ability to
No.
like corral the ball in those 3 instances. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, not at all. And unfortunately, one of my favorite plays of the week was a defensive play as well involving KJ, and it wasn't on the long form highlights. I have it recorded on when I recorded the game, so I can't share it here. Maybe I'll figure it out some later day. But it's shocking his fluidity and
Mhm.
athleticism and strength, that combination, and then the intelligence on the court. Um, and so for a guy that got maligned, he was so high up in the rankings and then dropped precipitously. And the explanation is, well, he's turned the ball over, he's not shooting it well, and you're wondering, like, does he have guard skills really? I know he did when he was in El Paso, but like maybe that was lower competition. He moves to Duncanville, needs to step up, and he's just not quite getting it done. And you worry, maybe he's just a physical guy that and an exceptional athlete with great length, but just does not quite doesn't not going to be able to stay on the court really because of that lack of ball skills. And that thought was completely wrong. I mean, it's just utterly nuts when you look at him now because he operates out there with kind of maestro level of way beyond his years, and it's that unique athleticism that supports it.
Well, and as you've mentioned a number of times, the maturity, the processing, and the decision making to know thyself. And you
Mm,
know, he doesn't really step out of his lane on
yeah.
offense. And if he's here next year, I'm sure he'll start to stretch himself like Boswell has. But you had that effective field goal percentage sheet. I think his is in the 70s. I think at the rim he's in the 70s. I think most of his
He's
shots are at the rim.
73%, 75% effective or rim finishing right now, which is, Kashad or
Yeah.
Pella's actually up there as well. But yeah, so it's he and only 22 shot attempts, which was shocking to me. Paulius has as many shot attempts. So I don't, I guess maybe that's where I would say, look, man, you're scoring like a big, take more shots.
Mhm.
It's the same thing I've been yelling about for Pella. I'm like, dude, if you have an effective field goal percentage of like 70%, you just need to take more shots, man.
Well, there's two sides to that argument, right? It's like the Scott Hatterberg argument in Moneyball, where it's like, Scott, you're hitting
Right.
500 on the first pitch, and he's like, yeah, there's a reason why I'm hitting 500 on the first pitch, because it's only premium. But I think what to your point, I think what we're going to see more are more ways, more moments, more angles where Pella and KJ can actually assert offense. And I don't actually need
Mhm.
them to shoot more. I need them to attack the rim,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and you can result in assists. Those two guys are
Hmm.
two of the better facilitators. And what I've loved about Pella is his ability to, he's attacking really well and getting to the free throw line, which I'll show in a minute. Here's the last bit on KJ, just the athleticism. Again,
Oof.
saving that ball. It's a small play, but
I
it
think all
it results in a layup.
I think
And
each of those plays,
yeah,
if he doesn't do that,
yeah,
if he isn't able to make that play, like no, I doubt many people are going to go, gosh, like really
no.
blown play there, blown opportunity. Most people would go, yeah, it makes sense. Like that looks impossible
Right.
to contain. Like
Four
how
to
in the look at that ball?
Totally. 4 to 5
How
times
does he get that?
that ball's going out of bounds, and Belmont gets another set. And
And
maybe that guy shoots a flat-footed 28-footer and it's a 10-point game. And all of a sudden, and you're inbounding the ball and it's slow
Mhm.
and McHale's quiet. And
Yeah, and you're going,
instead he saves it, and the run is on. And I think we scored even a couple more times. So
yeah,
these things are the little moments. They're the Andre Jackson Jr. type moments for
yeah,
UConn last year, where it's like
yeah,
that type of play between him and Pella, and
yeah, I
frankly,
agree.
Caleb and Kylan are on that level as well. That type of play to me is more indicative of championship potential than almost anything else.
Hmm. Yeah,
Let's show you this one last one. I did try to find your defensive thing and it wasn't there.
I know.
Maybe we'll save some of these ball screen. Um,
Because it took me 5 minutes to pull up the rim shooting.
let's save the ball screen stuff for when we really do a deep dive on Balo. Does that sound good?
Yeah,
Yeah. This happened a few times against Michigan State. I'd love to get Pella's numbers in terms of getting to the line, because that's like, he doesn't get a lot of shots, partially because he gets fouled. And this I'm seeing more with him this year, where he waits, the defense clears. This is a good defender he's on too, Hogard, and he just attacks all the way to the rim, gets the
later.
foul, right? So GoPro.
He has an 85% free throw rate, which
He needs,
is
yeah.
you shouldn't have that.
So that's what I'm saying. Like,
It should be like 50 would be high. If half
where
of your scoring comes from free throw attempts rather than field goal attempts, well, that's a lot. For
85
a
he has.
guard, for a
Yeah.
wing, yeah, he's 85 right now. Which I like you said, I do love, because that's indicative of him driving a ton and putting pressure on the rim, which I'm thrilled about. Pelican dribble, hashtag Pelican dribble.
Mhm.
But I think that probably settles a little bit lower, and I would like to see
Yeah.
him take shots
For
as well.
sure. Well, coming off the curl against Arlington, he had a nice 15-footer. I'd like to see more 2-point. He had a floater against them too, and
Yeah.
he didn't get a 3-point shot off against Michigan State. He had those two drives and then 6 out of 7 from the line, which is highly efficient. I mean, if you can score 10 points on 3 shots, you're going to win a lot of games.
Can't be mad at that. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. As we get into this, maybe this segues into Balo a little bit. Like watching Balo live. I've always, my stance on Balo since freshman year, or since his first year 2 years ago, has been, I love the guy. He seems like a great teammate. I don't see him as a primary like option on a championship level team. I see him as a really good player on a good team, but I don't see him in the Final Four, playing 28 minutes and making a big difference. I think if you got to rely on him like last year, I think he's too limited. And so I say that to give the context for like my expectations are not that high for him. And if you had 10 points on 7 shots, no matter who you are, like that point per possession wins championships,
Yeah.
but it's all the other stuff,
Yeah. I think that's totally fair. And the beginning of the season stuff of like, oh, all American Ballo. I'm like, that is a stretch, man. And so would ask that folks not be mad at Ballo or say like, oh, he's regressed. Now we did see like a really dominant version of him in Maui last year, and I would like to. I am curious of what those differences were.
Soft rims.
So.
No, seriously. I mean, I don't want to minimize him, but go back and watch like how many he just shot up.
I remember
and
that.
Banked around. And I mean, like that's a thing.
I remember that. Yeah.
But yeah, he was assertive. I think what I'm noticing against is that his confidence seems a little shaken. Like he's a little hesitant.
He absolutely has been. He certainly was in that Michigan State game on, is this a chance for me to go into a guy? Do I need is now the time to go up? And that's unfortunate. I think the reason for some of that is, for me, for Ballo, it's not a lack of ability or that he's out of shape or something. I think the passing, his touches haven't been as quality as they were last season. You have to give a ton of credit to Kerr Kriisa for being an exceptional post-entry passer, especially early in the shot clock. Omar Ballo is going to run the court. He's going to he's going to establish space and really, set himself down near the bucket. You need to reward that guy. You need to reward that effort. And I thought Kriisa was masterful at that. And I think that the guys this year haven't gotten there yet. I'd love to believe that they will get there, but there were several times where I just saw, Ballo's down there, and Krivas does the same thing where Krivas is down there, he's established space, like who's going to get him the ball? I think Pella's pretty darn good at getting it there, but at that point, usually Pella's not the one, getting the ball down the court. He's usually that first pass, and so it's a bit late. So I thought he got so many easy looks, and the Arizona offense got so many easy buckets because of that action of just running the court, establishing space. Kriisa whips a pass in there that is underappreciated, and Ballo gets a quick dunk. So that's one portion. I'm gonna, if I can continue my little soliloquy. The second portion is the big passing. It's Azuolas Tubelis not like an efficient passer, right? Like he had plenty of turnovers. I think he was underwater or just at 1-to-1 on assist to turnover, but he was productive. He did pass the ball a lot, and a lot of that was big to big. Somebody on the board previously was able to pull up like a who passes to who gravity chart kind of thing for college basketball. So if anyone can find that, I'd love to see that. But you just look at the raw numbers, and it was like, Tubelis was like 3 assists per 40 minutes. Keshad Johnson is like 1-ish. That's a precipitous drop, and then, or maybe he's 2-ish, and then Ballo I think is maybe 1-ish. In any case, the two together previously were like 6 points or 6 assists per 40 between the two bigs, and now it's more like 3, maybe 4. And so, that kind of reduction to me speaks to maybe just a familiarity within the offense between Tubelis and Ballo last year. They've been in it a couple of years. Maybe just a familiarity with being, passing the ball as a European for Tubelis versus, what Keshad has typically been asked of. My hope is that those guys continue to develop a rapport. Johnson obviously had that incredible, super useful high-low at, towards the end of the Michigan State game for, Ballo got an easy dunk. After that closeout, I think it was directly after he attempted that closeout. So need them to continue to develop that rapport, continue that big passing that I think was so crucial the last couple of years. And then the guards need to watch some Kerr Kriisa tape maybe and learn to get that ball into the bigs early and reward them for the positioning.
I was going to say it's a phenomenal point, the point of the day for sure, Mike. And I noticed it in the Middle East, those 3 exhibitions,
Mm.
and it was just like, oh, our offense is different. It's more outside in, you know,
Yeah, totally.
and I think that's been a concerted effort to develop that
Sure.
part of our offense, and I think it's critical. And what I noticed too is there's a little bit of the Tubelis factor that is putting pressure maybe on making it easier to guard Ballo. And I think
Hmm.
Keyshot is a team guy. He's got nice touch. I've seen him throw the lob, high-low lob entry successfully. I think Tubelis was really adept at it. I think Krisa and Tubelis, for all their faults, well chronicled. They did some subtle things that really made the offense hum.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it's okay that it's not going to look exactly the same because, you know,
Yeah.
these guys aren't the same people, and Keshad brings other elements and Caleb Love brings other elements, of course. But I think like those basic skills, I'm with you. I think as we head into this murderer's row of a finish here, I don't think we're going to be able to get by some of these teams just with like, you know, guard hero ball. I think we're going to have to settle back into a nice balance. And maybe that's the opportunity for Love, who he is a really, really good passer. He's a facilitator.
Yeah.
His nature is to facilitate, really. And I think some of his shot selection is just going to come, maybe hopefully settle and be more balanced in simply becoming more familiar with the offense and hopefully emphasizing more of those early touches. There was one that I didn't include in this against Arlington where he was, maybe it was Belmont. It was Belmont where he was on fire. And so,
Hmm.
you know, when we're winning by 20, it's easy to sort of give people a pass. And there's one play where I think he'd hit a couple shots and he was really feeling himself. Krivas had really good he sprinted, he had great position. I think that he had like the point guard on him, you know, and Belmont was just so overmatched in size.
Yeah.
And Caleb stepped back and hit a 25 footer and he made it, but it was like, you know, that's not sustainable versus get the
Right.
ball to the 7'2" guy. It's not as exciting. I understand, but we're talking about championship level play.
Yeah.
And I think with Caleb too, he's been I think 3 for 16 from 3 in the last 2 games. And I both empathize and criticize him because I think he can improve shot selection, but also it does tend to fall to him to create something when the shot clock's going down. So
Hmm.
oftentimes those like 3 or 4 low percentage threes are not his choice, but the end of a clock, or, you know, he made that one
Totally.
at the end of the half. So, I mean, um, he makes some of them.
That's his best. That's his best shot, actually, is the end of the
Yes.
clock.
End of the half, 30
Yeah.
footer. You know, and so my criticism of him is not necessarily those, but more like the, you know, 5 minutes left in the game, you're wide open, you have your feet set, and you're missing the hoop by a foot. And I'm just like,
Yeah. You gotta hit that.
what is going on? Like those
Yeah.
have to go in. Like if he can make those at 38, 39, and then, you know, the rest is at 30 and the rest is like minimal, and he's at
Yeah. And now
36,
you're like, oh, you're at
35,
36.
36.
Congrats. Yeah.
I think that helps us. And
Yeah. A ton.
as well as I'm feeling more comfortable with Keshad. It's another emerging element that I want to see in the next couple of weeks. Like he's getting comfortable on that baseline 3. And what percentage do you want to see that actually changes the way the defense has to respect us?
I mean, what he's obviously currently hitting at a percentage that they should be respecting him. You know,
Well, I think he
I
started
think,
0 for 8. So I think like
yeah,
recently we're closer
the
to
recent,
40. Okay.
yeah, the
He's
recent work. Yeah, that's what I mean. Is the recent work has
okay.
been. Yeah, I think he's shooting just under 30% from
Right.
three, which is not, obviously not enough for guys to really respect it.
Sure.
Better than Kyle Filipowski last year, who was a
Mhm.
noted 3-point shooter.
Yep.
But
Bias.
yeah, exactly.
Duke bias.
But Duke bias. But yeah, I mean, if he's you know, similarly, like you're saying, if he's shooting 40% roughly on those opportunities, and then, you know, not shooting, you know, well
Yeah.
on some of the others, that
But
and if
minimizing the others. Yeah.
and minimizing the others, then you have to close out on him, and that's what Pella's been able to create as, you know, his scouting report, which is like, look, you do have to close out on that guy, and because of that, you know, he's been able to, you know, obviously, one, stretch the floor for his teammates, and then two, create driving lanes for himself on, you know, the kind of show and go, one
Because
of his
the
favorite moves.
totally the
Yeah.
inverse of that sort of Tubelis, you know, big criticism is that we've never had a 4 or a 5 that was a consistent 3-point threat. And, to me, when I watched Tubelis as a freshman under Miller, I think he shot 31% and he looked like he had a
Mm,
nice shot. And I was like, wow, this
mhm.
guy, if I'm this guy and I want to go to the NBA, I'm shooting
Here we
1,000
go.
threes a day. Like, this is it.
Yeah,
This is your path.
yeah,
And he never improved, and he never, I don't know why, who knows, but that was a little shocking to me. To me, if you, I think here's my tee up for Ballo, and then we'll come back to him in a week or two. My tee up for Ballo is this. I love Umar. I want to be on that guy's team for who he is.
yeah.
And I think, and this is a compliment to the program, not a diss on Umar. Umar could end up being one of the weaker bigs that Tommy ever recruits. And that's expected. And that's okay, because we had a bare cupboard. Umar came over. He was a big time project. Not saying he's not a good prospect, but I think he will end up being one of the more limited bigs that ends up being in this system. When you look at Koloko, Ballo, Anderson, the whole line, you can see where, like, when they went with Chet Holmgren, they had Kyle Wiltshire at Gonzaga.
Yeah.
Like, this offense, we have not yet seen this offense with a stretch 4, stretch 5. I thought Tubelis
Yeah.
would get there. Hell, I liked Koloko from there, but he never really let him
Yeah,
do it.
that's a good reminder. Yeah, I forgot
Right.
about that.
What can happen with a 5 that you can't play and drop coverage on this offense? We have not seen that yet. And I think that's
Yeah.
where Tommy wants to take it. Umar's not that guy. All respect to Umar.
No, and Krivas is probably not that guy. I don't think I've seen. I mean, I like his touch, but I don't think I've seen him, shooting like any amount of distance. Dylan
No, but
Anderson,
yeah, but
possibly.
Krivas already has a face up 12, 15 foot,
Totally,
and he just
totally.
hasn't had the chance. But
You
that's
could
coming.
imagine.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
could imagine him backing that up. Anderson. Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point. Is Ballo the most limited of the
Mhm.
guys that, especially impact guys? You look at Emmanuel Steven coming in, and you think of him as probably having a pretty big impact with his mobility and athleticism, which are
Defensively, yeah.
yeah, that's super interesting. Love to see it.
I
Hope maybe our
yeah.
man Henry Visar is able to come in and be that guy. That's who I thought he was going to be, honestly. So
I don't know what's going on with him. Again, we'll give the disclaimer that we don't know what's going on the inside.
yeah,
His ship could have sailed. If it hasn't sailed, this is his time, because the
yep,
front court needs a guy. Basically, Pella's your backup 4 because Morauskas is
totally.
not ready,
Hmm.
and Henry is unique. He can do a little of everything at 7 feet. And I got to see these guys on the
Yeah,
floor. And Umar is one of those guys. Again, it's been said on the board, I don't think he's 6'8", but I would not be surprised at all if Umar
he's
measured
6'10".
6'9.5" in bare feet or
Yeah,
something. Like, and he's
yeah,
not an athletic, powerful, athletic, explosive guy. He's solid athletically, but he's not
right.
Koloko.
Yeah, where you're like, oh my god, yeah,
No, yeah, I mean, those guys on Michigan State, that was the other thing I was going to say. They kind of look like a bunch of guys that joined the Marine Corps and then like became CrossFit instructors, and then decided to play basketball.
like, and also I got eligibility, so I
Right,
should,
right.
it should,
They were so jacked, and
yeah,
their 2 centers, Cooper and the guy from Mali, actually,
yeah,
they looked like decathletes, like Olympic decathletes that
hmm,
decided to play basketball. They were just
yeah,
like super athletic, really mobile. And Umar's not that guy. And so I'm not saying Umar is going to go down as a legend. He's earned every accolade that he gets, and I love him. He's going to
yeah,
have better numbers than some of these guys. I think he will go down as being the most kind of 2-dimensional big, even though I think he's worked his butt off. And I think he's being a little undersold on the defensive end. In fact, with my criticism, let me at least do one to back up Umar here.
yeah. Let's give him
Because
some
I
flowers.
because I because he has let's get this thing. Where is it?
Oh, this is a peek behind the curtain.
Peek behind the curtain, man. Here it is. Slack.
This
Krivas
is
too, the
this
ball
is
screen coverage.
this is the level of there's rim protection. Is
There it
that it?
is. Yeah,
This
this
is the
is
level of
high tech, baby.
production that we have. Yeah,
Oh, for goodness sake.
Abercrombie pay us.
Yeah, Abercrombie needs to be in our corner. So I just want to show this, again, it's nothing earth shattering. It's just like I think Balo's actually improved his agility on defense, and
Mhm.
he'll never be Koloko, but he has been really solid in just walling up. And so here's a fast break opportunity. Watch him recover.
Whew.
Yeah, look at those
Oh,
wheels.
wow. Love it.
So, again,
It's just
yeah,
Belmont, but
it's just, yeah, he did that a couple times against Michigan State. It's just like
yeah,
it doesn't get
yeah.
the credit when a guy makes a really tough shot. So it's a complicated question on Umar, and we're going to come back to it with a little more
Mhm.
depth in a couple weeks. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what do you I'm talking a lot, I'm aware. So
No, no.
what do you want to see? Like, what do you want to track as we head into this, crazy few weeks here with Colgate, Wisconsin, Purdue, Bama, and FAU? All very unique challenges for sure.
First, I want to reemphasize, holy cow. Like I think we're all feeling like pretty fat and happy after, the wins that we have so far, sitting at number 2. The non-conference isn't over.
These were the
we
two. These were
we
the two games I thought we'd lose, and now I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, Alabama is monstrous offensively, and
Yep.
FAU is going to be really tough, and
Yeah, FAU is
Wisconsin,
going to be really tough.
Wisconsin,
Yeah,
yeah, and
you
Purdue.
like Wisconsin. Yeah, I don't give Wisconsin any amount of attention in my brain beyond I hate that program.
Of
I hate that
course,
team. But good for you to give it a little bit more thought, and
I
that
hate the.
that you're
Hey, I grew up not like I grew up totally spoiled because my like first 4 years of being a fan, we didn't lose in McHale, and so I just figured like we never should lose,
yeah,
and I hate
don't
those
do that.
home games where like that Washington State game last year made me want to like
Yeah.
disown the team. But I will say this one thing again. I sat next to these nice Michigan State fans at the game, and I was like, "Hey, I can't wait to play Purdue. We are going to run Zach Edey into the ground." And the guy said, "No, you won't." So
Ah,
they had a high
all
respect
right.
for Purdue, and actually they think Edey is underrated in terms of his athleticism and stamina. And they thought
Oh,
that
okay.
now these weren't. I'm not saying these were like deep
Yeah.
dive basketball experts, but they'd seen him
Sure.
up close, and they said they thought they rotated him really well. Having
Okay.
seen Balo be a little shaky on last week, what's your take on that Purdue game? Because that's going to be super fascinating.
Yeah. I think Purdue. I don't have. I I hate to fall into the media take of like it's just Edie and some guys, but I know that their point guard is tough
Yeah.
and effective, but I think we're the deeper team, and I think that we're going to be the tougher team. They may out execute us again, like raised on. Hopefully, we do get to a point where we are doing both, right? Where we're
Mhm.
out executing and out willing. But I think the depth of the guys, and it's the guys off the bench. It's Krivas, who's his plus minus has been second on the team behind Bella Larson. It's Jaden Bradley and KJ. I just don't
Mhm.
think that. I don't know that Purdue is going to be able to keep up with all that. So
I
even if
hope.
Edie,
Yeah.
even if Edie can do what he can do, I just don't think that the rest of that team is prepared to face that the rest of Arizona.
Do you think there's a scenario where we actually go small with, I think our best small lineup, to be fair, would be Keyshot at the 5, Pella at the 4, um, and then whoever's playing well, with the 3 guard spots. Could be even KJ, Caleb, and Boswell or Bradley or somebody. But do you think there's a little more of that instead of trying to, I know it's really like, kind of Rocky versus the Russian, and intriguing that you could imagine Balo and Krivas taking it to Edie.
Just battle.
The guy is really good, he,
Mhm.
he and he's freaking huge. He's like a giant. He's like one of those Game of Thrones giants, and
Yeah,
like, is there a scenario where Tommy actually changes it up and goes small and
I think
attacks
he's gonna. I
trapping?
think he's
Yeah.
gonna. I think he's gonna have to try it.
Mm.
But I still. Yeah, I mean, I think the majority of the game we're going to have to be playing a big guy down there because
Mm.
we have two really high quality big men, and I don't know how much you can get away with um, just letting Edie be an absolute monster, with only Kashad as a guy who can, kind of match his strength. I think that'll be really tough. But I am really excited to see it.
Yeah.
I hope they give it a shot. Um, yeah, having that small ball lineup with JB, um, who I think JB, KJ, Pella, and Kashad are probably my four favorite defenders right now.
Mhm.
Although I love and I love Kylan. But I think those guys are just shockingly good
Solid.
defenders, and so
Yeah.
yeah. And then honestly, Grievous at the five. I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
I think that's a really 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 tough group to play against, and
Yep.
so hopefully we see those guys and everybody being just really disruptive and just kind of effing with their plan, and hopefully sticking with ours.
It's a rare moment when you're this good of a team to have multiple underdog games,
Mm.
being Duke, and then I would imagine we'd be slightly dogged against Purdue in Indianapolis, which I love. And
Yeah.
I think this team, kind of like some of the more scrappier, like vintage Lute Olson teams when he got more athletic, were really,
Mm-hmm.
really built to be tough as underdogs. And it was like almost a yearly thing. Like we'd come out and then reload and be like, oh, Arizona's playing Maryland in the Madison Square Garden. They're ranked number 2. Arizona's not even ranked. And we just like toe to toe,
Yeah.
I think this team is built like that. So that's really exciting to me. And I think you said it on the board, and I'd be curious to hear you say more, that Matt Painter's clearly, like Tommy, like a really, really good coach.
Great coach.
And
Yeah.
yet they've struggled in the tournament. It's also really like Purdue to me seems a little bit like Arizona last year, where like if you can have some athletes that are
Mm-hmm.
organized and skilled, then you can give them problems. And we're rarely like, it's so fun to be on the other side of that.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It is really nice to be on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not one for making predictions except for this. I will say that will unfortunately not be number 1 versus number 2 because Purdue has to go to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama the weekend before the week that we play Wisconsin. So we darn well better be undefeated going into that. I don't think Wisconsin is going to be the satisfying grudge match that Arizona fans want it to be. I hope we can gut out sort of an ugly 10-point win or so,
Sure.
but I don't think Purdue will be undefeated. I have a hard time seeing them go into Alabama and win. So that's kind of curious because they're going to be coming back from a loss most likely. And it's going to be, Alabama's similar to Arizona in a lot of ways. So I think
Right.
it's going to
Yeah.
be
NATO. It's
prep for them and prep for us to
yeah.
watch the tape. Plus they did beat Gonzaga. So it's really like, I expect Painter to be well prepared for us. But I also
It's a good
expect
point.
Tommy, like what I would like to see, and maybe we'll end it here, Mike, with your thoughts. What I would like to see is, can our team, in addition to building off of the experience, trusting the system more, having more conviction, more of a collective fight response in these moments, can we add some layers to our
Yeah.
offensive sets? And I think maybe Tommy's got that as we have all this space now between games. Can we get more
100%.
continuity? We actually have not, we've been a little stagnant on offense, and I'd like to see us get back to more of the continuity through just the initial set where people are doing a pretty good job guarding the first and second action. I'd like to see us be a little bit better at having that be continuous rather than getting to everyone stand around and Caleb takes a bad shot, So
Yeah.
what about
100%.
what about you?
100%. That was 100% my thought.
Yeah.
And as I'm looking at the schedule and we get through this and you take a big breath, and I'm sure there's a take a big breath moment for this team, but I'm sure additionally, the focus on succeeding and being better is driving Tommy to say, okay, now is this chance with this little bit of a break to start to add more, to do more. I think we're like 95th or 98th percentile in effective field goal percentage right now, and so we're a really good offensive team. But wow, can you imagine again with those guys? Hey, keep rising up as far as field goal percentage at the rim. get those early, post entry passes, run the ball screen continuity offense a little bit more in order to generate some chaos that you can then drive off of, and then see what, these guys who are pretty good passers once they're driving, pretty good live
Totally.
dribble passers, what can they do? Yeah, and that should make, and then the integration of all of these guys again, because there's so little continuity to the minutes from last year and the production from last year. Can these guys just kind of get on the same page? Are JB and KJ going to stop running into each other on the court? All of that just gives me so much like excitement and joy. Like this team is going to get better.
Yeah.
There's the ceiling that from here is it's so much higher because of the quality of these guys and the depth that we have with the quality. So it's exciting. Yeah, it's super exciting. We got a like you said, a murderer's row of games here. I think FAU is going to be sneaky tough with a 4-guard lineup that we need to be prepared for.
They're going to hit threes.
Absolutely, and put pressure from the point of attack. And so
and another really agile, athletic big too, who
100%.
Yeah, he's kind of like a Koloko.
7-footer. A foul prone guy. So I'd like to see
right
us.
At him. Yep.
Exactly. Use our ball handling and rim pressure from a guy like Kashad. So exciting times. The non-conference isn't over. We got a lot ahead of us.
So exciting. Well, I think we should leave it there just from a time standpoint. I could keep going. You could keep going. Let's connect after Colgate, because we'll really set up this kind of 4-game gauntlet. And really excited to see what happens. So I guess we're called Wildcat Fanalytics. Shout out to Wildcat Authority.
Imagine the banner here. There's a banner.
Shout out to a friend of ours on Wildcat Authority who works in production, who has volunteered to do our branding for us. But
if we could ever upgrade
it might be a tech
software
thing
here.
I might have to see what it costs to upgrade, but right now we're just totally stripped down. If you've got ideas and stats and you're thinking of things that we say, and you've got the stuff that Mike's talking about, and you want to come on and roundtable it with us, we invite you to reach out and connect.
Or if you don't want to, do what we do and get in front of a camera, which is totally normal. It's a normal thing to not want to do. Feel free to just share it, and we'd love to just chat about it.
We'll give you credit. Yeah.
Give you the props. Yeah.
Right on. All right, Mike. Appreciate you.
I'm out.